the Attorney General for India, the President of the Bar, Shri Rakesh Khanna, Office Bearers of the SCBA, the law officers, the members of the Bar, senior advocates, ladies and gentlemen. The Indian Constitution called, I heard in some conferences, as the People's Constitution, was drafted on this very day in the year 1949. As the name suggests, this sacrosanct document represents the high watermark of consensus in India's history. It heralded fresh beginnings for a nation, still reeling from 2 centuries of injustices under colonial domination. Though a modern project, the overwhelming influence of ancient Indian culture and ethos on its provisions cannot be denied. It therefore reflects the best in our traditions and is a considered response to the wrongs of the past, the needs of the present, embodying enough resilience to cope with the demands of the future. It has 3 mutually dependent and inextricably intertwined strands: protecting and enhancing the national unity and integrity, establishing institutions and a spirit of democracy, but above all fostering a social revolution to transform India. It is more than a set of schedules and articles. It does more than merely establish institutions for the governance of India. Instead, it is truly transformative in character. It marked a transition from the culture of authority of the colonial regime to the culture of justification of democratic purity. Through our Constitution, 1 billion voices spoke as one, articulating a notion of a nation in which persons of all castes, creed, religion, race and gender could call home. Envisioning a unified nation, it embraced a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious polity, and in doing so fostered a heterogeneous cultural and social fabric. It sought to empower the individual through recognition and protection of their inalienable rights and fundamental freedoms, including those of equality, liberty, fraternity, and dignity. These norms and values were meant to ensure justice for all. I have always found it fascinating, the perspective of Sri Palkhiwala, that the Constitution represents a charter of power granted by liberty and not a charter of liberty granted by power. In celebrating the 26th November as the Constitution Day, we pay homage to the efforts of dedicated men and women who had in complete measure committed themselves to the making of this nation. I found it fascinating to read about one of the persons who made the initial draft. He was a district judge posted in Assam, I think, one Rao. And he started drafting the Constitution before independence. He used to read in the newspaper about Gandhiji's freedom movement and said he's going to become independent, so let me draft it. He drafted it prophetically, and later on I believe he was taken on to the drafting committee. Some of these things are so fascinating, how people foresaw it. I believe it was Sri Aurobindo's birthday that we got independence. A common feature of the Constituent Assembly was its inclusiveness, with participation of not only the most prominent political leaders of the time, but also membership from various sections of society, including women, minorities, Dalits, and tribals. As a consequence, our Constitution today is reflective of a fine balance, blending diversity with unity, plurality with stability, pragmatism with idealism, formality with adaptability, liberty with security, all within a framework carefully designed to safeguard basic freedoms. The Constitution's goals could only be realized through institutions supported by people and occupied by persons well aware and committed to the constitutional goals. It therefore provides for an independent judiciary equipped with the power of judicial review. For a constitution is not but empty words if it cannot be enforced by the courts. Over the years, the Indian judiciary, led by the Supreme Court of India, has facilitated a social revolution, infusing it with renewed vigor and vitalism at crucial junctures of our nation's history. And I also get the same impression when I attend international conferences. Somehow, our Constitution and our judiciary is viewed at very differently these days. And I echo the sentiments of Sri Prasad on this. Over the years, the Constitution has facilitated a social revolution, infusing with renewed vigor and vitalism. And in this year, we plan to give it a fillip, something more related to Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad's second portfolio. We propose to introduce, if possible, soon a system of artificial intelligence. There are many things which we need to look at before we introduce. We do not want to give the impression that it's ever going to substitute judges. And in the end, I would like to tell you that one thing that's not going to happen is that we are not going to introduce appeals from one computer to a bench of 3 computers. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.